Good afternoon and welcome to this special edition of the Federal Executive Forum celebrating 17 years of profiling IT mission programs in the federal government. This is our second annual Profile in Excellence Chief Technology Officer program, which will be coming to you from the virtual studios of WTOP and the Federal News Network. I'm Luke McCormack, and during today's show, we will discuss emerging technologies and innovation at numerous government agencies and hear from key leaders making them happen. With me on today's show are David Larimore, Chief Technology Officer, Department of Homeland Security; Sanjay Kuyoni, Chief Technology Officer, Department of Labor; Carly Jackson, Chief Technology Officer, Naval; Christine Fennell, Chief Technology Officer, U.S. Marshal Service; Jonathan Album, Federal CTO, ServiceNow; Paul Moxon, Senior VP, Data Architecture and Chief Evangelist, Denodo Technologies; and Cal Veragante, Senior Fellow at the Office of CTO at Equinix. We have an absolutely powerhouse panel here, and I'm delighted. We're going to start with you, David. You've been over there at the Department of Homeland Security, and welcome back to federal service, by the way. Congratulations. For about a year now, and I know you're very involved with the Interagency CTO Council. You're very involved with the Department's Council. Give us a state of what Eric and crew have you working on these days.
A little bit of everything.
I bet.
So I generally like to start off by saying that, I was the ICE Immigration Customs Enforcement CTO for 2.5 years. And so now I'm at the department level and the game has completely changed, right? So I try to find a good acronym or a good analogy for this, starting out as, originally I was trying to find the forest through the trees. Now I'm trying to find the earth through the forest. It is incredible the amount of work all of the components are doing, let alone kind of what I saw in my little world at ICE while I was there. So, the last year has been drinking from the fire hose to really just understand what is the state of the union for DHS. And it's just incredible, right? And so, in working with Eric Heisen, we've kind of rationalized 3 different areas, right? And so understanding that technology and the breadth and depth of technology we now have available, it's really hard to just say I'm focusing on this one area. So we're looking at 3 real broad areas of technologies, one of which being customer experience. There's executive orders supporting this, Eric, and there's a lot of administration priorities supporting customer experience. The second being artificial intelligence and machine learning. So whether we're talking about leveraging facial biometrics, whether we're talking about leveraging artificial intelligence to help with benefits at USCIS, we're constantly looking at how those technologies help. And then third, but not least, is going to be zero trust. So, we've learned a lot of things recently. There was, most recently with Atlassian, we've had a lot of experience based upon prior events happening in the cyberspace. But the importance of implementing zero trust, not just talking about it, is really, really becoming a departmental priority.
Yeah, laying down that architecture, right? Folks forget that there's zero trust is a zero trust architecture, and ensuring that these moving parts and various pieces and elements and builds that are happening across the department and the interagency are all snapping together into this architecture. So appreciate all the great work that's going on there. Sanjay, how about over at Department of Labor? You certainly are on a tear over there these days, and it's fun to watch. Tell us about what is the state of the state? What do you have yourself involved in as far as examining different technologies and laying down the roadmaps, et cetera?
Sure. Thank you, Luke, and good morning, everyone. I want to note that, so I spent a lot of my career with the Department of Health and Human Services, and about 1.5 years ago, shifted over to the Department of Labor, which has an important mission, as I think everyone is aware.
Love to see the cross-pollination going on.
Yeah. So my remit over in DOL, the CTO office, we report with the OCIO, is to look at 3 key areas. One is how do we incubate and test new technologies that come into the department? The second is looking at how do we provide data services to the department? How do we ensure that we're leveraging our data for better intelligence and informed decision making? And then the third is looking at our enterprise architecture. And DOL recently shifted to a shared service environment. So all of our IT delivery is happening through a centralized approach. And so we've got the IT people, we've got the resources, we've got the budget, and we serve as that enterprise focus for delivering that and empowering the mission of DOL. And so we always look at it from that lens around, now that we have this more centralized approach, how do we look at assessing and scaling technology and ensuring from the enterprise architecture perspective that it is it's not duplicating, it's adding value to what we currently have, and it's all aligned with the mission. The only other thing I'd say, Luke, is that on the emerging tech side, we've just started up an emerging tech program to help push through the scope and scale of how we get new technologies through. There's a pretty heavy focus around automation and artificial intelligence, but also an equal focus around culture change and how do we get the agencies to appreciate and understand the value and impact of what these tools can do, as how do we also implement them in a responsible way.
Interesting, right? Embracing this new technology and doing it carefully, thoughtfully, but consistently and at a certain pace, I think makes sense. Carly, how about at NavWar? Maybe give everyone, 30 seconds on what is NavWar. I mean, I think some folks have an appreciation of that. And then tell us what's cooking in the CTO's office there.
Yeah, sure, Luke. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Carly Jackson. I'm the CTO at the Naval Information Warfare Systems Command, call sign NavWar, if you will. So we are formerly Space and Naval Warfare Systems Command, so SPAWAR for those that have that legacy understanding and have worked with us in the past. The mission has been unchanged. The name change came about a few years ago, and it's really sort of energized the workforce just to be even better and faster than we were before. Our priorities right now are to be mission focused, to remain mission focused. It is well known at this point out in the public press and in some fairly recent publications about how concerning the pacing threat is. And so that is one of the chief focuses that we have been rolling out, which is, as government scientists and engineers, as a leader for thousands of government scientists and engineers, one of our missions is to be the bridge between the technical community and the operational community. And so we do that by partnering wildly with our industry and academic partners and other agencies. But the government scientists and engineers have a really unique role in understanding the finite details of that pacing threat, and then figuring out how to apply all of the goodness, all of the technology that is coming out of the significant industrial base, all of the R&D that's going on, billions of dollars across commercial, defense industry, and again, our academic partners, and really figuring out, finding the diamonds in the rough and figuring out how to apply those technologies in a very complicated maritime domain with a technologically savvy adversary that is investing significantly in technologies that pose a threat to our infrastructure and our forces abroad. So at NavWar, we focus on the communications, the command and control, the ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance type technologies in the maritime domain. So that is for our Navy sailors and our Marine Corps forces around the world. At NavWar, we also support significantly many folks from the intelligence agency as well in providing solutions that pass data across the services for more informed decision making. So we're pretty proud about that, as well as the fact that we're leading, we feel like we're leading across the DoD in embracing modern software best practices, modern infrastructure practices that are really bringing a whole new level of speed to how quickly we can field technologies. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are embracing what industry has already been doing, but doing it in a way that's operationally relevant for our systems and our forces that must operate in this highly distributed, disconnected environment and then applying the tweaks to those systems to really make them effective.
Very broad and very sophisticated portfolio you have there. Thank you for that top line. Christine, I know you are doing some very cool and very important things over there at the Marshal Service. And I think on behalf of the federal government at large, if I recall, give us the state of the state. What do you have? What are you focused on over there at the Marshal Service these days?
So I think, Luke, these days we're focused on how we can get innovation into the pipeline faster and help our users adopt the technology that maybe even exists today, or stuff that they would like to do or see. I mean, it's important we have a similar threat posture where we're always aware of not only how we're invading here at U.S. Marshals, but also how maybe criminals might be using technology, and how we have to kind of stay one step ahead. So, but we're primarily focused on our cloud journey. We're almost 100% cloud. We'll be there within the next 12 to 18 months. That's going to allow us to broaden our ability to do more compute and stand up things quicker, get things delivered faster. We're also focused on data and the digital experience. We've been doing a lot with the automated workflows and automated robotic process automation that's helped save a lot of money. But I think the intelligence sharing, the ability to get that data fabric in place has been critical. And once that has completed in the next 12 months or so, we're going to be poised to really take advantage. And we've been exploring zero trust and the use of direct cell 5G services to upload directly to the cloud, which has been very, it's really been a game changer to be able to let our, we've got a lot of video traffic that has to be uploaded to a space. So those types of things really just can't be done on some of the old traditional technology. So I think what's helped us, we have a very formal investment review process, but the CTO office was stood up 2 years ago primarily to help enable innovation. And we've stood up a proof of concept process that helps people get into the pipeline within a month or two versus 2 years. And so I think that's really helped enable things here.
It sounds like an internal accelerator program which is really important, and I'm glad to hear that and glad to see that. I know there's some interesting things going on over there. Jonathan, you've been in and out of federal service, now over at ServiceNow, been there a while, and you're seeing things from across the federal domain. And I would suffice to say that the sort of platform play is here to stay, being widely embraced. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, absolutely, Luke. We work across almost every federal agency in some form or fashion, and we're having platform conversations with CTOs and CIOs and program managers and others across agencies, helping them understand that a capability like ServiceNow is not a single product. A lot of people know ServiceNow for IT service management. Maybe that's where they started, but ServiceNow is not a product for IT service management. It's a product capability for connecting things in an organization, connecting people, connecting data, connecting systems, breaking down silos. And, one of the ways that we're out there demonstrating this is by showing how well ServiceNow and the ServiceNow platform align to the president's management agenda. If you think about the PMA, there's an entire section focused on employees and strengthening the federal workforce. And ServiceNow's employee workflows are in use across many agencies doing those same kinds of activities. So making that connection, I think, is important. Similarly, the second part of the PMA is around customer experience. ServiceNow's customer workflows are changing the way people interact with government. I want to talk about that a little bit more as we move on. And the third part about, the business of government really is driven by technology excellence and operating excellence and innovation capabilities that ServiceNow is very proud to offer to our customers. So when I look at how we're supporting the federal government and I see this strong alignment to the PMA, I feel really, bullish about our role in helping the administration achieve its goals. And I feel really proud to be at a company that's integral to so many agencies mission and being a part of that success. Having been a CIO in the federal government, when you have capabilities that are really visible and missions that are really visible, the technology and the people that underlie those things are make or break. So we can play a role, and we are playing a role in ensuring the technology is there, and that the people who use the technology have the not just the skills to do it, but they have the customer and employee experiences that make a difference when you are delivering for the American people.
Yeah, good timing for this type of technology to be widely adopted across the federal service, no doubt about it. Paul, how about over at Denodo? Why don't you first tell us what Denodo is for those that may or may not know, and then tell us what you have cooking over there.
Okay, so Denodo Technologies is a leading data integration, data management tool, recognized by analysts such as Gartner and Forrester. And we work with a number of government agencies in helping them with their data strategy, helping them make data available. And it was actually interesting listening to the some of the other panelists, David, Sanjay, Kali, etc. And they talked about the importance of data within the organization. And it's encouraging. I'm a data geek, really, not just a geek, but a data geek. It's interesting to see that government agencies are now treating data as a strategic asset. And getting data, getting insights from that data into the hands of the decision makers is becoming more and more important. Sharing data, this is something that Christine talked about, sharing data, sharing intelligence across agencies. This is what we're seeing the different agencies trying to do. They want to share data within the agency, but also with other agencies as well. And they're recognizing that the traditional ways of managing data in the past are not really working. So they're looking at what new technologies can we bring on board to support the AI that everybody's talking about. Everybody talks about wonderful things with AI. Christine mentioned data fabric, and that's one of the technologies that people are bringing on board so they can make it easier for the users to find and access the data, make use of that data, because that's the lifeblood of many agencies today. And it's encouraging to see that and have that drive the AI programs that everybody's excited about. Without the data, your AI is nothing. So the data is the core to those insights, that intelligence, that decision making.
Absolutely. I always said that, look, the bad guys are not trying to get into our environments to look at how cool our networks are. They're getting into our environments to get to the data, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's just a fact. All right. Well, we're going to take a short break and we're going to be right back in just a moment. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on the Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We're talking with the chief technology officers, and we were just going over the state of the state. I'm going to send it over to you, Cal, at Equinix, and you can tell us, oftentimes hear Equinix coming up in various conversations that I have with CIOs and CTOs and the like. Tell us about the state of the state as to what's going on across the federal service using Equinix.
Yeah, hi, Luke. Yeah, so what we're seeing is first key trend we're noticing is move to the edge, because the amount of data that is getting generated at the edge is large. So rather than moving these massive data sets to a central location to, do your AI and do your management, people are now bringing compute to where the data is getting generated rather than moving data to where the compute is. So in that regard, basically all the top, most of the AI companies in the world, they are actually now deploying their AI stacks at Equinix to help customers do AI close to where the data is getting generated. So the AI is definitely one major trend we're seeing. The second key trend we are now just beginning to see is the whole area of 5G networks. So the 5G network providers are now also moving their MEC for compute at the edge. And now they are actually hosting their core networks and MEC at Equinix to basically enable, once again, their customers to do AI and other types of edge processing close to where the data is getting generated. And another major area we are looking at is sustainability. increasingly there's a lot of focus on getting services from us. And so I'm happy to say that we are 95% on renewables energy at Equinix. So definitely increasingly as you do more and more AI, each rack of AI hardware can consume anywhere between 30 to 40 kilowatts now. And so standard way of doing air cooling won't scale. So you have to go to liquid cooling and basically how you design the next generation systems and how you make them energy efficient. That is the place where we are really focusing in regards to sustainability also.
Wow, it sounds like some very important things going on there and timely, that's for sure. We're going to talk about specific programs, and I always like to say that the chief technology officers, that there's some that would fuss and say, look, these folks, they sit over there in a sandbox and they're, messing around with these petri dishes, and none of this technology ever sees the light of day. And we know that's not the case. And so we wanted to make sure that you all had an opportunity to highlight things that you've worked on, emerging technologies that have made it into your operations area. Sanjay, we're going to start with you at Department of Labor. Give us an example of a program that you all are working on that is emerging into operationalizing the labor department.
Great, thanks, Luke. So first, I'd say from a programmatic perspective, our Chief Information Office as a shared service provider has benefited greatly from us taking innovative approaches to how we improve customer service and make our technologies, especially with a lot of our legacy technologies, more responsive to our customers, so that when agencies come in or our leadership come in and are bringing a problem, that they don't really care as much about what technologies you're using. They just want us to solve the problem. And us having a number of things in our toolkit that we've tested out and can apply helps us to be as responsive to the customer need as possible. So we've got 11 robotic process automation pilots. Handful of them have gone into operations. We've got 10 AI pilots with agencies. And I'll give you an AI example where we started to innovate in the cloud using AI services like speech to text, text to speech, translation services, form recognizer services with a lot of our native cloud technologies that have AI built into them. And we're seeing a lot of real benefits in some, others we're finding that they're not as mature. And so with like form recognition, for example, we worked with one of our agencies to pilot how AI form recognition could speed fraud assessments and beneficiary determinations for our claim examiners. So in our current state, our examiners would spend significant, considerable manual hours sorting through and comparing forms instead of fully focusing on beneficiary customer service, empathy for our customers, faster determinations, and using some of our AI cognitive services that we have in our native environments. We were able to develop and pilot a model to organize data from several claims forms for the examiners and allow them to really focus on why they were hired, get this information together, have it assessed, and then enable them to take a look at that and make much faster determinations and focus on other program areas for improvement. So that's an example of real needs in our organization, and only because we have these kind of systems in place to proof of concept pilot and really assess where will this add value versus where is this liquid in paper, but it doesn't necessarily translate into that benefit for some of our important workers here at DOL. Really makes a difference in applying good solutions that we know are actually going to work.
You just described the absolute, reason why agencies have CTOs, right? A lot of this technology does end up on the cutting room floor, but you suss it out and you find out what does work and what actually can be operationalized. Jonathan, every time I turned around and there was a real immediate need, whether it was Allied Welcome or the COVID response, always heard about ServiceNow sort of being in the middle of that. Give us an example, if you would, of where agencies have adopted this technology to serve the need.
Sure. Thanks, Luke. I think one of the reasons why you see that is ServiceNow is, a great technology to quickly develop solutions on. As a platform, like we talked about, it's a single piece of it's a single piece of technology. It's one architecture. It's one database with low code capability. So people can spin things up very quickly, and they can modify and change the customer workflows or employee workflows that we've already created also very quickly. So they can rapidly establish a new capability in the environment and meet a need. And I touched on the PMA earlier, and tied into that is the customer experience executive order. And in that customer experience executive order, there's some requirements for the Fish and Wildlife Service around e-permits. And Fish and Wildlife uses ServiceNow's customer workflows and our new public sector digital services capability to enable public to engage in various regulated wildlife activities. So, previously, permits were a very manual process, and there's like 65,000 different permits issued each year. And before the e-permit system that we worked on together, applicants, had to apply for permits through the mail and pay with a check, and that can take a very a very long time. And as we've rolled out e-permits, we can now be much more customer focused and provide very quickly citizens with what they want, the ability to recreate or do things on land, or for organization participate in scientific research, to be very very fast in getting the approvals they need to do the work they're trying to do. So we're trying, and this is just one example. We're doing things like this across government, where we're trying to take the manual processes away. We're trying to take we're trying to make the work and data flow as quickly and as readily as possible. And as we add in automation, we add in artificial intelligence capabilities that are built in part of the platform, we can extend these kinds of solutions to other critical workflows across organizations. And ultimately, just like Sanjay said, that provides a better service, whether it's to employees who can be more focused and do the examinations he was describing, or people that rely on government agencies to process their permit or other kind of application.
Mm-hmm.
You can get focused on the things that are most important, and we're doing quite a lot of that.
Easy platform to adopt, no doubt. Dave, give us an example of a program that you'd like to brag about over there at the Department of Homeland Security.
Oh man, so many.
So give us the one you like the most.
Well, okay, all right. So
the most important,
Listen, I talked about my three things, right? My zero trust, my CX, and artificial intelligence. And in reality, it's very easy to work on all three at once. There's a lot of things that we can do around artificial intelligence that help with CX. There's a lot of things we're doing around zero trust that actually help with the customer employee experience as well. I'm gonna stick with the tried and true example. We're gonna go to artificial intelligence, machine learning. So USCIS, and I hope Rob Brown gets a hold of this and reaches out to me. But I'm going to talk about USCIS. So USCIS implemented in 2020 a evidence classifier machine learning solution. Right, the concept was their adjudicators have to spend time on repetitive tasks, being able to root through documents, digital documents, to be able to tag them for specific items related to benefits, right? And it was taking an incredible amount of time. So what USCIS did was they implemented machine learning as an example, and I don't need to go into specific technology, but they leveraged machine learning to automatically tag all of these digital documents, and essentially, I think up to early this year, saved around 24 million page scrolls, right? So instead of all of these adjudicators having to roll through individual documents, we've got the machine learning automatically, the machine learning is right, that's the training, right? That's the learning, and they're using technologies that apply what the machine learning put together, but it's saving like a significant amount of burden hours on employees, which is actually turning into reducing a significant amount of burden hours on people applying for benefits. So it does provide a actual calculatable benefit from a customer experience perspective. So we're very proud of that.
A lot of man hours saved in a situation like that. Cal, how about over at Equinix? Give us an example of a program you'd like to highlight.
Yeah, I would like to highlight a program called a solution called Analytics Anywhere, or AI Anywhere, we call it.
Okay.
Essentially, what we are finding in the whole space of AI increasingly is that one single organization doesn't have all the data that it needs. So you have to share data with other partners, both within the organization and external agencies. So more and more organizations are afraid to give their raw data away to someone else because it can be used for unauthorized purposes. So we are seeing the area of federated AI. So essentially what happens in federated AI is that you take your model building algorithm to where the data is residing, and you just get the model weights, and then you send the model weights to a central location to create a global model. So this helps with both reducing the amount of data you're sending to a central cloud or central location, and also from a privacy standpoint, data never leaves your four walls, okay? So you're just processing the data for AI in your own location. So the area of federated AI is something, it's very important I would like to highlight. And the second key area of this solution that I would like to highlight is that this is a marketplace for AI. So it's not just for sharing data between organizations, but organizations can also share their AI models. And what we are finding increasingly is that most organizations don't build their AI models from scratch. They go get data from somewhere else. They get existing models from somewhere else for transfer learning.
Mm-hmm.
So lineage of where this data is coming from, where this model is coming from is extremely critical. You really need to know, because the models can be biased, and because someone who has used different type of data to train, or even maliciously has trained using malicious data to make the model behave in a different way. So the lineage information is very important. And this Analytics Anywhere solution, we actually keep track of that lineage information, both where the data is coming from, where the model is coming from, and we let the consumers and providers actually transact in this AI marketplace.
Origins.
So different agencies can actually now share data in a very systematic, way. And blockchain is the underlying technology which is driving all that. Yeah.
Sure. Origin, very important in those types of situations. Carly, you talked about some very cool mission sets there. Give us an example of a program you'd like to highlight.
Oh, geez, I'm gonna struggle here as well with picking just one.
Yeah, just try to pick one. We're trying to pack a lot in.
I always say, the spirit of entrepreneurship is alive and well at our Naval Information Warfare Centers, and we really have embraced this concept of, we call it warfighter-centered design, but that's our interpretation of user-centered design and customer experience, which many of the other panelists talk about. And so many of our scientists and engineers have had the honor and privilege of delivering novel capabilities directly to the warfighter, and really in these iterative cycles that can allow for rapid experimentation and iteration to get to the point where they've delivered game-changing technologies. One example that sort of resonates with the topics that have already been discussed is our teams of scientists that are using machine learning and AI techniques to optimize command-centered decisions by using a data-centric approaches, by abstracting the data and making it usable across systems and across boundaries. We've also applied natural language processing to that, and in unique ways, which is noisy environments, Navy speak environments where maybe some of the commercial tools aren't already pre-trained for that. So we're making headway there, and in really providing machine-assisted decision-making to our warfighters so that we can get inside the adversary's OODA loops, if you will, decision-making approaches. So those UCD approaches and rapid prototyping interfaces that can rapidly spin up new types of GUIs and other tools for our warfighters have been really game-changing and enable the rapid adoption of other technologies that might even be hardware-focused or afloat, right? Deployed afloat to our afloat platforms. Mm-hmm. We also really embrace things like live, virtual, and constructive experimentation to allow for really tight experimentation timelines with novel technologies. So even though it might be something that exists on a lab bench, we can spin it up in these environments and try to understand as early as we can what the mission impact is and get even a virtual representation of these technologies in the hands of our warfighters. So we can make those important decisions about which of the thousands of options that we have on the benches in our labs is really the next one that we need to pull up, rapidly mature, and field to the forces.
Yeah, I think speed is the key here, no doubt. I appreciate that. Paul, how about over Donato? You want to give us an example of a program you'd like to highlight?
Sure. I'm going to go back to something that Christine, actually a number of the panelists have talked about data or sharing data and the concept of a data fabric. And the program I want to talk about is the PRIDE program at the Department of Energy, Product Realization Integrated Development Environment. We're talking about the national labs, the NNSA, and they're responsible for nuclear research, maintaining the nation's nuclear stockpile, etc. So this is that classified data that you talked about, Luke, the one that the bad guys want to get to. So they obviously work in a very, very secure environment, but they need to share information across these different sites, Lawrence Livermore, Los Alamos, Savannah Riverside, Oak Ridge in Tennessee, etc. They need to share this data between them so they can do more effective research, they can do more effective nuclear engineering work. So they've actually built a data fabric using the Donato platform across these various sites. I think 12 out of the 13 NNSA sites are actually using the platform now as part of this data fabric. So now Pantex plant in Amarillo, Texas can securely share data with Savannah River, with Oak Ridge, with the Kansas City plant. And each site has control over what it's sharing, how it's sharing it, who it's sharing it with, and also can audit who's actually accessing that data. So this allows these various labs, these various locations to feel confident that I'm sharing data, but I'm sharing it with control. So that, this actually encourages and propagates the sharing of information amongst the various parts of the NNSA. So that's to me a great example of interagency government, sharing of data.
Fantastic example. And I was just out at the Department of Energy's Innovation Conference and pleasantly reminded of the sophistication of what happens in those labs. It was super impressive. All right, we're going to take another short break and we'll be back in just a few moments. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We're talking to the CTOs about a variety of very interesting activities and programs. And we were talking about specific programs. I want to throw it over to you, Christine. I know you all have been working on some very interesting things over there. Give us an example of one program you'd like to highlight.
Sure. I think we've had a lot of really amazing innovation success, a lot of things I can't really share, but there is one particular program, which was our robotics process automation program that we stood up in the last year and a half. And that has actually saved about 700 labor hours in just the first process alone. So we saw immediate success with that. And we've now been adopting it to more labor intensive, standard repeatable processes. What that helps us do is then engage with other, tasks that may enhance the mission. So we've done account automation, we've done procurement automations, and those savings will just continue to grow. We're right now looking at cyber threat analysis automations and patching automations. So we're excited about where that's going to lead.
It sounds very interesting. I know that saves a lot of time and energy for the men and women at the Marshal Service. Very broad set of responsibilities there. We're going to start talking about priorities. Going to ask each of you top priorities. Dave, I'm going to start with you. Number one priority for Dave Larimore in the CTO's office at Homeland Security.
Customer experience.
Customer experience.
And everything has to find a way to lead to a burden reduction, increased experience, providing improved experiences with citizens and non-citizens alike. We need to prioritize that across the department. It's something my office has been investing a lot of calories in figuring out how to be better, faster, stronger.
At the end of the day, it is about the customer. So I was delighted to see the White House put that memo out and say we're going to focus on the customer experience and we're going to work our way back into technology. Sanjay, number one priority for you.
Number one priority is ensuring that emerging tech innovation continue to be built out as a mature service for our program areas and not as an add-on. And so, being in this a long time, and not to being trite about this, but technology in a lot of cases can be the easy part. Making sure that you've got leadership support, you've got the budget, you've got good systems in place to do this. You're constantly demonstrating impact and value so that all of this is really tied to new business value that's scalable and creates value for the agency is key. And on the people side, hiring up talent, retaining talent, it's a hard thing sometimes to get, finding the right contracting support for that kind of work as well. And not just training within our program, but across all of DOL around the value this can create, and for all of us to start thinking about it from that mindset. Process side, again, we've started innovation incubators. We've started to get the infrastructure in place for RPA AI, but the maturing of that and it serving as a prime way we think about our operations is key.
A lot of focus there, and we really do appreciate it. Carly, number one priority for you at Naval these days?
Overmatching a technologically savvy adversary.
Wow.
And there's a lot behind that, but certainly agree with several of my counterparts there. And we're just really focused on energizing our highly technical workforce and giving them all the tools to include technology, but also addressing the culture and the experience so that they are energized to field and develop the technologies that really will provide overmatch in their individual areas of expertise and domains. So I'm all about removing barriers and providing the platforms, the data, and the infrastructure to these great scientists and engineers that have devoted their careers to serving the nation.
Right. We always hear about speed of mission, and we're to overspeed of the adversary here. So interesting way to state that. And I think everyone understands that when you phrase it that way. Christine, number one priority.
I would say that our number one priority is empowering the adoption of innovative technology and ensuring that our users, whether it's our business or our end users, understand how they can adopt that technology, get to that data, and hopefully, maintain that data at the edge where it doesn't move, like they talked about earlier in this program. All of those things are super key, but that culture shift is really the main driver between what will be successful and how we become more efficient as an organization.
Right. Many of the agencies here, your operations are very much out in the field. And so having that adoption on the edge, very important. All right, well, we're going to have to wrap it up here. And we always like to talk about painting a picture of the future here. And I'm going to ask Cal for you to start at Equinix. Tell us what it looks like in a couple of years from now. What's the demand signal that you all are getting and the things that you're working on that we can expect to see 2 to 3 years from now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there is a fundamental confluence of various technologies like AR, VR, 5G networks, processing at the edge. So that confluence is now beginning to happen. So I anticipate a lot of interesting new applications that will be coming. So for example, for predictive maintenance, you wear your AR, VR goggles, to go, fix a vehicle of certain type, right? And so I think that in the future, more and more processing will move to the edge. And so people have to start thinking about distributed architectures. You just cannot do central AI. You have to have distributed models. And I think that's where we as a company basically, are having our interconnection hubs or IBXs in most of the major metros. And so we are seeing customers come and deploy their multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, and edge architectures at Equinix.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Paul, we talked about it's all about the data, whether it's on the edge, centralized, distributed. It is about the data. What is it going to look like from where you all are positioning over the next 2 to 3 years?
Somewhat similar to what Cal said, that the data is going to be absolutely everywhere. There's not going to be a centralized location. If you think of Carly and her situation, there are over 300 ships in the Navy fleet. They can't all copy their data back to a central location. So each ship is effectively going to become its own data center. It's going to become its own cloud. And when they get close to each other, proximity, they'll start sharing information, etc. So you'll see a distributed environment which will automatically connect when they need to. So they'll be sharing across the world, not just locally. And it could be from field officers, field operations, such as Christine's talking about. It can be Navy ships. It can be Army command centers. It will be a very connected, distributed, but connected world. And the challenges will be, how do we make it connect securely? How do we share the information and intelligence across all these partially connected centers? But that's going to be the future. It's called Skynet, but never mind.
Absolutely. Jonathan, the ServiceNow platform has really developed nicely over the last few years. I can't imagine over the next 2 or 3 years, what can we expect to see at that point that, let's say, is different than what we have today? It's pretty awesome today. What can we imagine in 3 years?
Well, that we recently released our automation engine, and that includes RPA, and we already have a lot of API integration capabilities and process automation capabilities built into the platform, along with artificial intelligence, machine learning, and whatnot. And what we see is the continual push towards hyper automation, where all of these technologies come together inside organizations to really automate end-to-end processes, so people can be freed up to focus on higher value work. And what we're really proud about at ServiceNow is that we built all of these technologies into a single platform. So ServiceNow customers are able to really unify their approach to hyperautomation through a single technology. And when you think about what that can yield, we have lots of disconnected processes and systems and organizations today. And to serve a customer, whether it's around the CXEO or providing employees with what they need and great employee experiences, it can be a lot of manual processes and a lot of manual steps. We want to automate, and we want to support agencies as they automate as many end-to-end business and IT processes as they can. And, those processes span multiple departments and organizations and programs, and sometimes multiple agencies. And you look at the CXEO, it's about, life experiences and supporting a person as they have something happen to them that's a journey through multiple agencies. And how much of that can we automate? I think we can automate a lot. We have the technology, but as I think Sanjay noted, sometimes it's not the technology, it's the people and the processes. So, my goal is to make sure that we have, across government, recognition about the ServiceNow platform as a way to connect these people and processes and systems and data and automate as much as we can. And, ultimately that gives us a chance to really transform how the government operates. We can, eliminate low-level work. We can have people focus on the higher value creative work, the reasons that they were hired. And, the result is more engaged employees and people, citizens, public that is better engaged with their government and has more trust because they're getting the services that they expect, and they're doing it in a way that inspires confidence. So that's where I see this going.
Fantastic. And we're all looking forward to that. Christine, you've been over in that role for, I think you said, a couple of years now. So sort of fast forward a couple more years, maybe at the 5-year mark. If I'm a freshly minted Marshal coming into the Marshal service and I look around, what can I expect to see as far as capabilities available to me and my staff?
So I think here at the U.S. Marshals, we're driving towards a future that will enable those marshals to have everything really in the palm of their hands, have that data rapidly, rapidly accessible in a format that they can better understand. And that's done through a lot of work with data rationalization and the automation of the intelligence options to, be able to return those type of results. We'll be getting leaner, and hopefully we'll be able to provide them the tools that they need to, get the fugitives off the street or protect the judiciary and understand that threat. And we'll do it in a way where the cyber threat is baked right in, cyber threat mitigation is baked right into the technology so that they don't see the hindrance that they maybe see today.
I'm hearing a lot of mobile technology introduction and enhancement there in those statements, what I think is really, really cool, and I'm sure very much needed by your community.
Yes, sir. We are a very mobile workforce, very field centric, and it's not just getting it to the mobile device, but also getting tools that they can have available at the mobile device that maybe give them an auditable signal that tells them information about the, where they're at, or, some virtual, assistance in that technology arena. So there's a lot of new stuff that's available today that, and tomorrow I see coming, especially with the enablement of the data at the edge and the AI, as well as the 5G, that's really going to empower our users to do more.
Thank you very much. And of course, we all watched The Fugitive, and probably a lot of us watched Top Gun. So Carly, tell us about what it's going to look like in 2 to 3 years. What are you going to have coming out of the Petri dish and staying in front of those bad actors?
Sure. So it's no secret that technology transition in the DoD today is still a random walk and a contact sport. I often refer to, and that random walk doesn't mean like a lackadaisical reference. It's like you're envisioning electrons bouncing around a lattice until they find the right exit point there. But in all truth, we have several exemplars and examples of where systems have been delivered and deployed that are designed, and their acquisition strategies support being responsive to the emerging threats and to end user requirements. We are learning rapidly from those success stories and doing everything that we can in order to scale that type of capability and infrastructure across all of the systems that we're responsible for from a command and control and communications and ISR portfolio kind of perspective. And so some of that speaks directly to a lot of the discussion about data fabric. So I appreciate Paul. Thank you for that, for covering that for me. But also DevSecOps pipeline and modern software development practices, where we are abstracting the platform, the infrastructure, the data as a service across our hundreds and hundreds of platforms and nodes that are distributed across the maritime environment. That's a must. And that is, we see that as the most tremendous enabler that we can do in order to help the workforce deploy the novel and exquisite components, algorithms, and containers with the new technology directly to the warfighter.
Right. And looking forward to seeing all that technology get introduced, and appreciate everything that you're doing. Sanjay, Department of Labor, what do you want that environment to look like? What do you expect it to look like? What are you planning on having it look like 2 to 3 years from now as you've implemented shared services, et cetera?
So building off what my colleagues have said, we'll continue to invest in emerging technologies and make sure that we have a mature approach for that. I will say that I think key foundationally to do this will be the need to continue to invest in innovation and emerging tech to help solve our problems. And so I think we all see that our problems are getting greater, especially after things like COVID. Our budgets don't always keep pace with that demand. And so there's going to be this continued focus on how do we do more with less, faster, better, cheaper. Part of this is this requires a continued focus on innovation and taking some new approaches to our old problems and recognizing the need to invest in that. Same thing with customer service. I led the development of usability.gov back in the mid-90s when web was coming into government. And it was just because of a significant need for these type of approaches. And it continues to pop up, it seems, every administration as this great need for focusing on our customers. The other thing I just note also I think is important is doing this in a responsible way. So as we consider new tech, we evaluate the impact on our programs, we also need to think about how does it affect people? How do we continue to educate around how we evaluate its impact and ensure that what we're doing is not necessarily displacing people, but we're trying to get them to high value work. We're not trying to put out models that aren't necessarily evaluated for their intended impact, but that we are doing that as well. So I think that responsibility piece is something that is going to mature, and we hope to see in a couple of years continue to strengthen.
Right. Take the robot out of the human and allow them to work on how high value work. Makes a lot of sense. And I know there's a lot of activity going on across the interagency. Dave, you've been there just about a year, as we described. You've got some priorities, AI, CX, ZTA. 3 years from now, I know there's a lot of different systems, the Southwest border systems that are, at various levels of maturity. You got contactless airport activities, a lot of moving parts over at Homeland Security. What are you thinking it's going to look like? What do you want it to look like? What are you expecting it to look like 3 years from now?
So I've always said that if I'm doing a good job, I'm not needed. And, I don't know how my peers in this world feel about that, especially those in the private sector. But, the idea is we are solving a connectivity problem, right? We are solving connectivity problem between everything happening in the organization. We're trying to make sense of things, find the patterns, et cetera. And I think what we're going to see at DHS over the next 3 to 5 years is redefining what sharing means. So, right now, everybody thinks of sharing as like, okay, give me your data. And now, when I think about, 10 years ago, we're like that meant an API. Now, APIs are, but I think in general, sharing needs to be the new standard, right? Transparency and sharing amongst all the components. We have the same mission. We all fill out the same SF-86 and the same, security forms and the same public trust, and, whether it's application data, whether it's best practices, whether it's cyber telemetry data, whether it's, the scripts for serverless computing, whether it is, interfaces, ideas with peers. I think we're going to be getting into an environment where, my office and where the department is focusing on how can the components share everything all the time, be respectful of civil rights and civil liberties, be respectful of privacy, be respectful of mission, but at the same time, every single component is doing great things in different areas, and we all have something to gain from one another. So that is a passion. It is a priority, and I think we're going to see that naturally that's where the department is going to be unknowingly spending a lot of time, and we're starting to realize tangible and intangible benefits of that.
That concept of one DHS, and we really do appreciate it. I want to thank all of you for fighting the good fight and for taking the time out of your busy schedules today to join us for this program. I'd like to thank all the sponsors for supporting us on the show. And I'd like to thank the good people here at Federal News Network that make the program so successful and enjoyable. And most of all, I'd like to thank the listening audience out there that tune in every month. You've been listening to the Federal Executive Forum, part of the Federal News Network.